What's going on, folks? Welcome, 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 welcome. Episode 20. Here we are. We did it. Yeah. Cool. Never thought we would have this cool markup experience of being able to be so happy about having a episode 20. Jesus Christ, I'm so red. Sorry, we've been outside swimming with the kiddos. So if I look really red, that's why.
Light switching. Light switching.
All right. Okay, there it goes. Hello. All right, cool. Whew. All right. Well, I'm glad that you guys can all, you guys are all here. You guys are able to join me. If you are, great. If you can't, damn. That sucks. I just wanted to say that this, what does this say? The discussion topic for this episode is going to be the discovering or the people who came before Columbus that found America and the evidence to support it. Some of the people who have gone down this road of looking into this subject matter is Scott Wolter. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. Hold on, let me see if I can. Let me pull this up. I had a bunch of stuff lined up, and then I had to restart the computer because it was just going ape shit on me. All right, I got that one. But if you guys have not seen America Unearthed or have looked at it, the host is Scott Wolter. He is I guess you could call him a metallurgist. What he does is he studies rocks and determines how old they are and where they come from or where they could be found. And he has a book that is out, a couple of books actually. Templars in America. No, that's not it. Where is it at? Oh, Cryptic Code of the Templars in America. And he has, I think it's like 3 books to suggest that his findings support this hypothesis, I guess you can say. Fuck, I'm red. I look funny. And it is very interesting because, like I said, I am all about the history. I'm all about looking at things and learning and discovering new things that are going on every day, as far as uncovering new things that were supposedly hidden from the mainstream narrative of and historical aspects, as far as, like, who were the first people to actually discover the Americas, what, if anything, happened to ancient cultures that were in North America. We've got the disappearance of the Mayans, and a lot of people say that they just left and migrated north into what we now know North America, or the continent of the United States. And the evidence to support that, like I found out, was through watching America Unearthed. And this came about um, when I was watching it. I actually did not know that there was a paint that the Mayans would use called Maya blue. Now, if you do not know what this is, let me see if I could pull this up. All right. I'm gonna try and hi, Boss Baby. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. All right. Now this right here, what I'm showing everybody is man, this is so crazy. Why is this computer? It's like lagging, like I'm talking and it's going like martial arts movies. Uh no, it's like I had to restart it earlier because it was like going like heck crazy. So I just restarted it. Anyway, um one of the things that Walter Scott was talking about while he was uncovering them in Earth was symbology found in stone structures. You have drawings. You have stone structures that had carvings that were in that he found in Mexico. He found them in certain parts of America, which I think is really cool because the petroglyphs that he did come to see about 45 minutes to an hour from here. And I think it's Allen or Fernley, the petroglyphs that are out at the national park there. And I got to see those, and it was really cool because the circles that he was investigating, you can clearly see the indentations uh, in the rocks here in Fallon, I think it is, or Fernley. Sorry, I'll look it up right now. But were the same indentations that he had seen in Mexico. And on some of the structures in Mexico, he found that as you can see it right here, it says one of the many mysteries involving the ancient Mayas is the origin of the blue pigment they used to paint murals and buildings. Archaeologists have searched far and wide for the source of this pigment. It now appears that the largest source of that makes this pigment can be found in southwest Georgia. Now, the funny thing about this is as I said, Scott Walter, who was the host of America on Earth, was catching a lot of flack, just like oh oh man, my brain is so gone right now, folks. Sorry about if you catch me, just like pausing a little bit to take a moment because, like I said, I had everything set up and then this happened. But there is also another person who I think that Walter or Scott Walter should get a hold of, and that is this gentleman right here. Hold on. Oh, I got it. Ancient Apocalypse. Graham Hancock. And I'm sorry, Graham Hancock, that I forgot about. Uh, forgot your name on this, but like I said, my brain is going. Scott Walter was catching a lot of flack when he started this show or the series because I think there's more than 3 or 4 seasons. I may be wrong, but he was denied access to a lot of things that were hidden. And this is going back into another subject that I have talked about before, is national parks. Why is it that we cannot study, look into, investigate, or document evidence to suggest that there was something contrary going on in these places than what mainstream media has always told us and ancient historians have always told us? A lot of people were denying the fact that he was finding or had found or had looked up or looked into people across America who were finding ancient artifacts, or people who were working in archaeological settings, discovering these things and saying, wait a minute, this looks like something that we found somewhere else. Mexico, Europe, Africa, South America. And they were like trying to deny everything, with him. And it's really crazy because when you look at the show, okay, and like I said, I want to make a public announcement. I'm not getting paid by any way, in any shape or form, by the makers of America Unearthed or Scott Walter or Graham Hancock or the producers or anything like that or whatnot. I am just going off and showing everybody the evidence that these people have dug up, that, like I said, I've noticed it, that there's got to be something more to this. And so did these guys. These guys understood that there was something that was going on that we weren't being told. And they investigated it and they brought it out into the light. Now, Graham Hancock, who is not an archaeologist by no means, but he is an investigative reporter. And he started getting into this when he started noticing, if you don't know who Graham Hancock is, he is of Ancient Apocalypse. Now, Graham Hancock is somebody who has said that we as a people should look back and adjust our timeline and what we've been told about our ancient history, about structures that have been around for thousands, if not millions of years, and the ancient cultures who lived in these structures or in these areas, and how they had this advanced technology or this advancement of astronomical or astrological knowledge, to the point where they built these monumentally enormous structures based on astronomy. And not only just on astronomy, but they did it in a point where it was so precise. How could you do something, make it the way you did, without being able to look at it from the sky and look down on it and go, no, 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 it needs to go a little bit left, it needs to go a little bit right, but this is where it needs to go, and make it precise. I can't even fucking get my goddamn pool that we just put up and leveled and straightened out on a part of my backyard that we had, or we have, without it being fucking crooked. And here you're talking about these people thousands and thousands of years ago making these massive mounds, these massive pyramids, these massive structures on mountains, these massive murals in the desert that we have no idea about. But they did it precise, with no flaws. But I'm getting a little bit off subject, but I'm just touching on Graham Hancock and Scott Walter because of what I'm talking about today on the show, which is discoverers of this continent pre-Columbus. So these two men started, well, Graham Hancock got into it because he was an investigative journalist. And he started noticing, hey, this stuff is just really irregular. And he started getting interested in it. I think he was saying back in the 70s. And he started traveling all over the world and started getting into investigating these structures and these areas of interest that make you think this cannot be right. This should not be right. This should not be here. And if it is here, it should not. This is way older than what we're thinking. And he has caught so much flack from academics, the mainstream academics. He's gotten flack from academic industries, people in high places like the Smithsonian Institute. We all know that they have their hand in covering up a lot of history and a lot of information that would definitely change the narrative and aspect of how we look at our history. And not only that, but just what we've been taught, what we've been told, that people should not have been able to do things or have been able to just fucking build boats and swim across, sail across the ocean. And we've always been told, that there were certain people that were, cultures that were not at that peak at the time of being able to do so. But as you know, if you do any looking into or you do any researching, you know that there were people who were actually in America that were far more smarter and far more accomplished than what Europeans were for that time. And the Polynesians um, were fantastic sailors. Um, Africans were well beyond what we thought that they were capable of doing, and there's documented history about them as well. Getting back to Scott Walter, let me just put this up there because everybody's probably going to be like, "Oh, fucking!" I mean, you can Google it, but um, this right here is Scott Walter. He is a cool dude because I liked watching him in the shows because he would sit there, he'd be, investigating stuff, and he would tell people, well, let me take this back to my lab and check it out. And he would whip out his little magnifying glass, which, my wife ended up buying the kids 3 of them so that way they could go out and study and look at, bugs and leaves and dirt and things underneath this microscope. And it's a little pocket microscope you could check things out on. But this right here, America on Earth, is Walter Scott, or Scott Walter, I'm sorry. And he would look at these rocks or these structures or these, placements of these, artifacts that people were finding across America. And he was like, this doesn't belong here. He would find out that they came from, certain areas that were hundreds of miles away, or he would find evidence of these stones that were, let me see if I could find this. I think they were called the Virginidaire stones. And this goes back to the Scott Walter Virginia Dare stones. All right. And these stones here are stones that Walter Scott was investigating while he was doing his show. Like I said, you'll have to look up the seasons in the episode. But these stones right here to the right, um, let me just pull this up real quick. Give me a second. All right. Let me see if I can get this. All right. No, I don't want to sign up for this. Uh, all right, cool. So, all right. I don't know what's going on, but this thing is like really, really, really getting on my nerves. Um, all right. So, what we have here is the exploration of the lost colony of Roanoke. Now, everybody who's any knows what lost colony is. And for us as Lumbies, we can trace our back to the first settlers um, that landed on Roanoke Island, the lost colony. Um, and and this time it was about 1880 or 1584. Captain Philip Amidas and Arthur Barlow, they sought an ideal location for the summit. This was their ideal location. So, long story short, because we've all heard the stories or some of the stories, the rumors, the big things that people left out and that are being dictated right now is that the colonists were all dead. They all died. None of them survived. But we know that this is not true. People now, like I said, the Virginia Dare stones are being seen as evidence. Here they are. That were strewn all over the inland from North Carolina and were written down, and it gave a detailed accounting of the survivors of the Roanoke colony. And the reason why they're called the Dare Stone is because these were believed to be Virginia Dare, who gave birth to her daughter, the first English settler to be born in these states, supposedly the only first one. But um, there were, as it says right here, there were 47 stones, and they were turned out to be forgeries. But few of these stones were in question. Now, when Scott Walter went and investigated this, he was no way that this could be fake. It shows wear and signs of being as old what they're saying. And as I said, this turns out to be something that could possibly just very well be a hoax. But this stone, as I said, one of the 47, holds in question that, yes, this is probably what happened, is that the colonists were thrown into slavery by the tribes and were sold off and traded and were well, pretty much just intertwined into the tribes that they were sold into, the women and the men, um, when they were taken from the colony, because they knew that they were not going to be able to survive. But as I said, this is just one thing that goes into this narrative that we, as American citizens, we weren't ever told a lot of things that happened. And not only was, the lost colony the first surviving colony in America, but the children of these settlers that were from intermingling within the tribes, ended up, as I stated before, surviving and becoming what we now know as the Lumbee colony, or the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. Going back into what I was talking about, so Walter Scott, Graham Hancock are just some of the leading people that I just wanted to throw out there as academics, of people that were just trying to prove a point, trying to say that, hey, we need to look at the mainstream media and just history has to be rewritten. We got to look at this stuff. So going back into the discovery of America, we know that Columbus was not the first person to discover or come across America. The reason why I say this is because there were evidence of Vikings who had already made it to America way before Columbus. Way before Columbus. And Scott Walter finds evidence of knights who actually, there were tombs that were supposedly tombs of knights that died here. They got lost. They found their way inland and made it all the way into, I think, what was it? Let me look this up real quick. Sorry. All right, here it is. I found it. This was the page I was looking for. And this is going to be stuff that's going to go off of, evidence that they've already found. Knights Templars. I don't know if a lot of people know who the Knights Templars are. They were commissioned by the church to fight in the Crusades and to help the people traveling on routes and provide like a security, element. And they were also founders of the first banking system around the world, really. They were wealthy, they were rich, they were well knowledgeable, they were master craftsmen, they were masters of any art that they were, builders, shipbuilders, navigators, historical documentation. Um, uh, as I said before, the first banking system that we know of um, in Europe, across the world, that actually funded and made the church wealthy. But as we all know, that all came to an end on what was to be known as Friday the 13th, by the Pope, who declared them enemies of the church because they found out that they were too powerful. They were becoming too, pretty much did not need the church, because the reasoning behind that we can look up, and if you want to go ahead and check it out, is that the Knights Templar were actually the, I guess you can call it the deed holders of the church, because the church was in debt to them because they were pretty much funding a lot of things that the church was doing, because they were, like I said, they were funneling money from other portions, other branches, I guess you could call it, that were around the world, in South America and Europe and France and Scotland and Greenland and Canada and South America and Brazil. Even we found that if you go on Gaia and you look up the episode of Knights Templars in Brazil, there's two parts, I think. Very, very, it just blew my mind. And like I said, I'm like, when it comes to historical stuff, I will stay up, after I get done rocking my baby and, spending time with the wife and the kids, I'll sit up and I'll look at stuff, or I'll read books on this subject matter. And the Templars were very, very ahead of their time. And one of the things that people, as I said, Scott Walters, or researchers into the Templar, this guy right here, his page, let me see if I can, this is his page here. His name is Tony McMahon, the author of this, and he wrote about this. Was actually with Scott Walter when they found some of the, and let me play some of this for you so you could check it out, see it for yourself. Let's take a listen.
Hello and welcome to Templar Knight TV, broadcasting on YouTube. You can also follow us through the Templar Knight blog, as well as keeping up to date on Facebook and on Twitter. And this is a special edition looking at whether or not the Knights Templar got to America. Let's examine then whether there's any evidence that the Templars reached America 100 years before Christopher Columbus. I get exclusive access to Rosslyn Chapel, where some believe
that's on my bucket list,
that the Knights did indeed set foot in the New World. And I go filming with the team from America Unearthed, presented by Scott Walter, in caves, treacherous caves near Weems in Scotland, where a strange carving suggests the Knights may indeed have crossed the Atlantic. Now, I know, having worked on my blog, The Knights Templar, for many years, that you are enthralled at the prospect that the Knights Templar reached America. So in this episode, I'm going to examine whether or not there's any truth to this. Our starting point is basically the end for the Knights Templar. In 1307, they're rounded up, the orders have gone out for their arrest. They are imprisoned in dungeons, they're tortured, and eventually they're burnt at the stake, including the Grand Master himself, Jacques de Molay. But there's a persistent theory that the Knights Templar managed to get some of their treasure that was in the Paris Temple, treasure that may have come from Jerusalem. They managed to get it onto carts, and they took it down to the port of La Rochelle, where waiting ships, set sail around the coast of England, eventually ending up in Scotland. It's said that once the Templars arrived in Scotland, they were able to enjoy the protection of the Sinclair family. Now, the Sinclairs were the Earls of Orkney, a position that they owed to the King of Norway. And it's said that the Sinclair family were great friends and long-term allies of the Knights Templar, that they'd known, for example, the first Grand Master, Hugh de Payne, and they helped the Templars to hide for years, possibly even decades, in Scotland, in two locations that I'll talk about later in this episode. Now, it's alleged that Henry Sinclair, the Earl at the time, hatched a plan with the Templars to escape in a very decisive manner for a part of the world where the Catholic Church would never be able to catch up with them. the New World, which it's said through his Viking ancestors he knew all about. So around 1400, the Templars set sail with Henry Sinclair for America, possibly using Viking maps, maybe even maps dating back to the
Now, I want to make this perfectly
Phoenicians,
clear.
according to...
You're listening to what he's saying, right? 1400, at least almost 1492, when Columbus supposedly, sailed and found America. So he's talking about Henry Sinclair funding them to be able to get to America around 1400. Because a lot of the late 1300s, 1396, 1398, the fall of the Knights Templar started becoming, they knew it was inevitable. It was done. They were being, like you said, they were being round up, they were being persecuted, they were being thrown in jails, they were being literally killed because the Pope did not want any of them in power. He knew they were a threat. They were hiding something. They had all this richness, they had all this amounts of gold, wealth, they had people in their pockets. They knew that they could buy their way, they could buy any ships they wanted. All they needed to do was just funnel the money that they had hidden somewhere and say, hey, like he said, look at, they had ships that were already built that they paid for in Scotland. So they just jumped on them and said, hey, here's your money. They got maps from Vikings. They got the information from the Vikings. I'm going to get into this too. Vikings were known to have been in America way before this. If anybody has seen the movie Pathfinder, if you have not seen it, I keep saying this a lot, and it seems to be something that I'm like repetitively talking about here. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and let him talk.
One theory, and make their way, eventually landing at Nova Scotia. Once in the New World, they set about trying to build a society based on Templar principles, and evidence of their presence in America is often cited by two structures. One is the Newport Tower, which supporters of the Templar theory claim is some kind of Templar fortification. Detractors, however, claim that it's a 17th century windmill. And then
I'm going to go back real quick because I want everybody to see this real quick about what he was saying. Okay. When you get into watching America on Earth, all right, this tower, I'm telling you, if I had the ability to just travel the world and just visit these sites and see these things and document it myself and talk to the people who have done it, like him, this Scott Walter and all these other people who are jumping on this bandwagon and finding this evidence to support them, that not only like you hear him saying that these academics are saying, oh, it was a windmill. Horseshit. When Scott Walter goes into this, it's an observatory. It is literally an observatory. And in these slits that you see on top of the ramp, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. But it is made precisely with a, what do you call it? The stone that like holds the others. Keystone. There's a keystone that is placed there, but it is a particular keystone that was made by what master masons would use. And they were said that this tower was actually an observatory that was made by them And like I said, I'm going through all this stuff and telling you because you could do your own research and do your own diligence by looking up the Knights Templar and the knowledge that they had and the information that they vast information that they had and they carried with, them all throughout their surviving, I guess you could call them sects, or, because they were pretty much, just in hiding. They just took on regular normal lives, had normal families, but they were Templars and they were master builders and craftsmen and architects and philosophers. And they just went back into normal life. They hid, but they were secretly like secret agents. They were working for the Templars. This building on a solstice, part of the solstice, I think it was in fall, when that sun goes through that light or through that keyhole, it lines up perfectly with the other one that's on the other side. Like I said, this stuff is not coincidence. I mean, you just don't build a windmill with directional keyholes that mark out solstice events throughout the year. Very, very interesting subject matter. It's very cool.
The track, however, played, but it's a 17th century windmill. And then there's the Westford Knight. Now, it's either a trick of the eye or it's a carving of a knight on a glacial boulder in Massachusetts. It's been hotly contested for over 100 years what exactly this is. It's said that Henry Sinclair and the Templars, while they were in America, or for as long as they were in America, possibly forever, they struck up a friendship with a local Native American tribe, the Micmac. It's even said that the emblem of the Micmac incorporates a crucifix indicating their contact with.
Very well. This is things that people, why in the fuck? Okay, and I'm going to say this. Would a native tribe, an indigenous tribe, native to these lands who's never fucking looked at a cross or these symbols, implementing them into their flag? Why the fuck they would have a flag? I don't know. But they implemented these symbols. Is this not evidence enough that, yes, Henry Sinclair and the Knights Templar did make it to America? But they refute it. Why? Why would they refute something? Because the narrative is not fitting what they want to tell everybody? Maybe. But why hide that? Because if Henry Sinclair actually led the Knights Templar across the ocean to Nova Scotia, and anybody who knows where Nova Scotia is, it's a big thing with the Curse of Oak Island, where there was a treasure that was said to have been buried, possibly by these Knights Templars and others who have come here as a waypoint for them to bury and leave their treasure in the hands of this native tribe. They were entrusted with this. As you said, he struck up a bond with them. They became good friends. And he said, I'm pretty sure, I'll let him talk about it. This stuff is so interesting. I mean,
the Mac. Maybe it's even said that the emblem of the Micmac incorporates a crucifix indicating their contact with the Templars. And it's even suggested that Henry Sinclair came to be worshipped as a god. But I think that's a very large pinch of salt. Of course, the Money Pit, a place where the Templars are believed to have buried huge amounts of treasure, and of course the subject of an enormously successful documentary on history. And I've even appeared on a Oak Island related podcast, seen here, which of course I thoroughly recommend that you download as soon as possible. If the Knights Templar were in America, what eventually happened to them? Did they disappear into the mist? Or did they transmit their knowledge and their treasure down to the Freemasons? That's one theory, that the Freemasons knew how and where to access the Templar treasure, and that this was used.
So just going off of that and just, giving you an insight on what, like I said, a little tidbit here and there. I think I already put that one up. Yes. That is a lot. I mean, a lot of people will look at that and be like, "Ah, yeah, that's just something else." There's no evidence to support it. But as you see, the people who seen Sinclair, Henry Sinclair and the Knights Templar, this indigenous chief incorporated their symbol into their culture. Now, what are things that you would do that for unless you did not see these people or these symbols? Sorry, putting the charger port back on. In some time of your life. I mean, maybe they were even making voyages back and forth across the Atlantic for years. Because you do find out that there are pictures or carvings in the Rosslyn Chapel of what is depicted as maize, corn, on the chapel columns. Now, at this time, this stuff was not around. So it was really hard for these people to sit here and say, well, this isn't real. But you have that depiction of the corn in Rosslyn Chapel, which we know is a Templar chapel. You have Sir Henry Sinclair, who traveled with them across the ocean to meet these indigenous people. We know they did because, as he said, they have depictions of the natives incorporating their symbolism into the culture, and then them giving things back to Sinclair, who then did the same, incorporated it into the structures that you see at Rosslyn Chapel and other parts of Europe. Now, that is just one instance of what we are seeing of evidence of people that have been in America and in the region of America before Columbus. So that begs the question, if they made it all the way to Nova Scotia, why stop there? Do you think that they were just like, well, fuck it, we made it here. Let's just turn back around and let's go head back. I guess we did it. We did our deed for the day. There was evidence to support that Henry Sinclair possibly made it all the way out here to Nevada, to the Grand Canyon, all the way to the west. Yeah, it's true. There is evidence to support that there has been visitation of other countries, the Knights Templar, the African tribes, the Vikings before the Knights Templar, all the way to, and there's even historical accounts of the Egyptians making it out to America. What we know of as America anyway, but to the continent. And the reason why I say that the evidence, there's a lot of things that are out there that people need to look up and do their research on. The Grand Canyon thing, I wholeheartedly believe that the Egyptians did make it out to America, to the continent. And I keep saying America because it wasn't America back then, but they did make it out to the continent and settled in the Grand Canyon area. Now, let me see. I got to pull that up because I don't have that either. And you're going to have to look at the artifacts from the Grand Canyon and also the Egyptian artifacts that were found. You can find that in America Unearthed as well. The treasures that people have found there that should not be there. And if you look at some of the destruction or the structures that are in the Grand Canyon, it's just no coincidence that they're there. You have structures that look like, here, let me see. There are structures in the Grand Canyon. Well, that should not be there. There's the Isis temple. You have, let me pull this image up. You guys can see it for yourself. They call it the Cheops Pyramid. You have the Isis temple. You also have what I think it was in the 1950s, when the Egyptian burial was found in a cave system. Let's see. Also, this is another crazy thing. Did you know that they found a over 44,000-year-old Egyptian mummy in Utah? 2022 December, my wife and I are in Utah at the NIC unit for our daughter. And I'm on my phone. We're sitting there, just, chilling with our daughter who had just been born, had to be taken to the NICU because of issues that she was having. And I'm looking at the news on my phone, and it says that they had just found, or they were doing a construction site. They had found a over 40,000-year-old Egyptian mummy in Utah. And I look at my wife and I go, babe, look at this shit. She's like, what? And I go, we're here and they just found this. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, they just found a fucking mummy in Utah. And she's like, really? 'Cause we had been talking about this stuff a lot. And we talk about things, that I'm pretty sure normal couples don't just sit around talking about, but she's very well fascinated, as much as I am, on these discoveries of stuff. So yeah, of course I'm going to talk to her about it. So I'm sitting there and we're sitting in the NIC unit, and holy crap, they did find it. Now this goes back to the whole thing of the Egyptians being here in America into the Grand Canyon. Now, the person that found this was in 1909. Anytime you will try and find or do research on the things that I'm talking to you about, or anything in general, you're going to run into stuff that's talking about, oh, well, this was fake. This is a hoax. They did the same thing with the burial mounds and the giant bones that they found in the burial mounds. And the Smithsonian came out and was like, oh, this is false. People need to stop spreading this false information because it is not true. But we all know that the giant bones were found because President Abraham Lincoln said so in his diary. And let me find it. I love this. This is great because this just shows, I mean, even though they want to sit here and tell us that things aren't real or they aren't what we think they are, here you have a quote from Abe Lincoln, and this is from one of his journal entries. It says, the eyes of the species of extinct giant whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as our eyes do now. And here you have the president of America talking about giants. and giants being in giant mounds. So the Egyptians being in America before, I mean, obviously before Columbus, but why would the narrative of this be hidden from us, or us being told something totally different? And we all believe that, oh, well, Columbus was the only person to make it here and settle here and actually put the continent on the map. When in actuality, this continent was discovered, if not thousands of years before that. So keep that in mind, because I'm getting into something else here, and it's going to lead into a whole other can of worms. So not only do you have the Egyptians, all right. All right. So we have the Egyptians who made it here before. Now, let's see. There was one thing I had talked to about a couple of people, and I know there's artifacts all over America to say that the Egyptians made it here. But I was always curious. It's 7:30. So one of the things that I was wondering about was during the time of Joseph in the Bible, when it talks about when Egypt was in the famine, and he left Egypt to come and find provisions to be able to bring and pull Egypt out of its is the food crisis that Egypt was able to pull off and sustain other countries during this time. Anyway, so my thought is, could Joseph have possibly have came to America and sustained Egypt during that 7-year time when Egypt was going through a famine, or the area was going through a famine? And the reason why I say that is because we know that the Moors, the African tribes that Egypt was in control of, Egypt was able to sail. Egypt was able to navigate its way, not only with just their people, but I'm pretty sure they were able to buy, other countries that they didn't have, like, under their control, or that they were working with, to be able to say, hey, we're going to need this and that, and we'll pay you, or we'll do this, we'll trade or do whatever we need to do, because they were, like I said, they were found here in America. But what during that time of Joseph's reign, when he was the advisor to the Pharaoh, and he was talking about the famine that was coming, and the Pharaoh was like, you need to prepare for this, and it says he left Egypt. Did he come here, grab the provisions with the people that were here, the indigenous tribes, or people that were in Africa, the sailors that came to America to barter to get things to be able to sustain the countries in the region? Is it possible that he was able to do those things? I think so. Because we're going to go into this part of the African king in one of the tribes that sent his people to America to help barter with them, and be able to sustain and have people here on this continent that had families. They had tribes that were here that were intermingling with the natives that were here. This is true. This is documented. This is oral history. There's evidence to show, based on what the oral history and the structures that were here in America, that these tribes that were building, it wasn't just from them. They were getting this stuff and learning these things from tribes that were coming in from Africa. And the big thing I want to point out too, because this opened up my mind, was the episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, when he had Jesus Hotep on. And Jesus Hotep was talking to him, and Joe Rogan was like, yeah, this whole thing, with all these slaves, it just doesn't make any sense that, you would sell these people all the way across the Atlantic and just have like a half of your, investment that you just bought die on the way over here. And I'm listening to the podcast, and Jesus Hotep's like, no, that's not right. And Joe Rogan's like, well, what do you mean? You don't believe that there were slaves that were bought? And he's like, oh, I believe they were bought, some of them, not all of them. And he's like, well, what do you mean, not all of them? And Jesus Hotep made a very strong statement. He said they were already here. And Joe Rogan was like, wait a minute, what do you mean they were here? Like, there was already blacks here in America? He's like, yeah. So I started looking into it, and this is not the only time that people have ever said this. This is something that has been looked into and has been studied for a long time. And this is another narrative that is just getting pushed aside. Why? Because they don't want you to believe that these tribes, these indigenous tribes, these cultures that are seen as being beneath European colonists, these empires, They were seen as being no more than freaking hut builders. And yet they were master seafarers and were very ahead of their time. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people don't understand that the Moors pulled Europe out of the Black Age, out of the plague. They showed them how to freaking take care of themselves. They showed them how to clean their water. They showed them how to take better care of themselves, so that way they weren't living in filth. I know there was a passage that I had seen in a book online, and it was talking about a Moor when he had seen Europeans. He was like asking them, why do you sleep? Or why are you, so nasty? Like, why don't you understand the whole thing about hygiene? They couldn't take care of themselves. That's why they were just being ravaged by the plague in Europe. Until Moors came in and they started telling them, hey, we need to freaking do this, you need to do that, clean your water system, take care of your streets, stop throwing your shit in the freaking road you're walking in, take a bath, take care of yourself, take care of the area that you're in. And it's not only them, but it was the Romans as well. There is a long, vast history of intelligent, sophisticated, and highly capable tribes and cultures around this world that have been belittled to the point where they are seen as nothing more than just ignorant and oh man, they were nothing until the white man came, or Europeans or the Spaniards came and started colonizing them and turning them into civilized people, because they were doing nothing but just wallowing in their own, hunting animals with spears, and they didn't have sophistication, livable means. That's a lie. But it seems that the latter is that it was the reverse. That the information that a lot of these Indo-European or these European countries were getting their knowledge not only from ancient cultures, but these tribes that were seen as no more than being beneath them. And as I said in the other podcast, when we were talking about the image of Yahshua and how the depiction came from Caesar Borgia, and they used that as the face of Yahshua on the images of Christ, with the light skin and the fair hair and the blue eyes and a beard and a mustache, because the Pope could not fathom their Savior looking like a Middle Eastern man. That's why they chose him. So if history is written to make it seem like, well, these people that are below us can't be that smart or can't be capable of doing these vast amounts of things, let's make them look like freaking animals, and we're the saviors coming to help them. That's the history that we've been told. That's the narrative that we've been thrown into. But in the latter, it's totally different. Because when you start looking into this stuff and you start doing your research, that, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is all wrong. So if it's all wrong, then doesn't that mean that we need to start changing the narrative of things? We need to start changing how we look at our history. I mean, you sit here, and I'm going off subject a little bit, but I'm just throwing this out as a tidbit, is that colonization, okay, the victors of these when you conquer a country or you conquer whatever you're going in and you're taking over, you're going to try and erase these people's history because you don't want anything, you don't no, this is my land. This is how you're going to do it. This is who's going to be in charge. And this is what you're going to learn. Our stuff. This is your history now. I don't care about all your, culture and everything that you learned about. So they wipe it out. They get rid of it. And the Spaniards did a lot of that. You see missions up and down the West Coast, all the way down into freaking Peru. You see it all throughout, the Midwest and on the East Coast. And you see it in other countries in Africa, and you see it in other countries in Asia, and you see it in other places in, what would you call it? I mean, it wouldn't be really the technical word being for the Middle East. Well, like in Jerusalem, when they were fighting for the Holy Lands, the church, I see that in itself as being now, like I said, this is just me throwing out a theory here. And this is something that is, obviously, you could take it for whatever you want, but I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Because as I said before, this podcast is for us to be able to talk about things and to just put seed out there. So you can look into it. Take my word on Rainbow, folks, that the church would go in with the countries that they were with to colonize, but not only would they do it because they were funding these countries like Spain, Britain, in Europe, Jesus, to go and colonize, but they were wiping these tribes out. Convert and do what we tell you to, or die. And they were killing people, mass murdering people, women, children, kids, men, in the name of whatever, their higher power. This is the dominance that is symbolized, and people are still following it. We are following the narrative and the lie of what was being told to us. Because we don't look into it, we don't ask, hey, what's going on? This just doesn't seem right. Let me get back onto this. But as I said, you could see it for yourself with the evidence. Let me see. The Viking discovery of America. And I'll put it in the description so you guys can. What in the heck is going on? You guys can check it out for yourself and look at it. Paste. All right. I got both of the links up here in the comment section right there. Can you see them? If you guys did not get it, let me know, and I will repost it on the Facebook pages so that way everybody has it. But I'm going to The Forgotten Expedition of Vikings in North America. As I said before, I love history. This is just one accounting of what transpired during Leif Erikson when he reached America around 1000 AD. All right, so the Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, certainly reached North America around 1000 AD, almost 500 years before Columbus, but they were probably not even the first expedition to do so. Hence the reason why we were saying that if they would leave and they came to the shores of this continent, would it not make sense that they would be going back and forth? back and forth. And not only while they were doing back and forth, but they were mating and they were intermingling and with the tribes and the indigenous people who were here. Yes or no? I mean, why is that such a big shock? So it says that the Viking legends and the sagas spoke of expeditions to a place called Vinland across the Western Sea, where they had planted colonies for a long time, and these legends were regarded as nothing more than myths. But it has now been conclusively proven that the Northmen reached North America around the year 1000 and established settlements in present-day Newfoundland, Canada. They have left behind undisputable archaeological proof of their presence, including ruins of longhouses, tools, and weapons. It is likely that the Newfoundland settlement was not their fabled Vinland because it does not match the physical description of the general location set out in the Viking sagas, which means that their main settlement, probably nearest present-day Boston, had yet to be discovered. How crazy! What is interesting about the Viking presence in North America is that academic and historians regard the Viking saga as fictional until unmistakable North artifacts and archaeological finds discovered in Newfoundland around 1960 shattered their worldwide view. Thinking about it for almost 500 years, the common wisdom was that Columbus was the first. The Viking historical records of expeditions to the western continent were simply ignored. If archaeologists had not unearthed physical proof of the North presence, or understanding of the history would be based upon is fiction. But what about all the other myths? All the other stories of earlier pre-Columbus expeditions to the New World? Are they just myths, or are they based on facts? And here we have the Egyptians. Although ancient Egyptian civilization tended to be confined to the valley of the Nile and was not known as a great seafaring people, it did carry out at least one extraordinarily audacious voyage to discovering around 600 BC an Egyptian expedition manned by Phoenicians. As I said before, sailors circumnavigating Africa, traveling westward through the Mediterranean and through the Straits of Gibraltar, and then down along the coast of Africa around the Cape, and then turning northward towards the Red Sea and back home. It was an incredible feat considering these Egyptian sailors lacked compasses and were using primitive boats powered by oars and small sails. Some scholars have also pointed out that there are some similarities between Aztec and Mayan legends and religious ideas of Egyptian concepts. The question is whether the Egyptians had any influence or whether these concepts developed independently in different parts of the world. But the most telling clue that the Egyptians may have reached North America comes from across the cocaine mummies. Cocaine is made exclusively from the cocoa plant, and as far as we can tell, this plant does not grow outside of South America. Yet the chemical analysis of ingredients used to embalm some Egyptian mummies shows the unmistakable and unexplainable presence of cocaine. The same analysis has detected the presence of nicotine deriving from the tobacco plants, which was not imported to Europe and Africa until after Columbus. If only sources for cocaine and nicotine was a new world, then it means that somehow there was a trade link between Egypt and the Americas, thousands of years before Columbus. However, some critics believe that the test may have been flawed because of the hoax contamination of the samples, or that if genuine, the substances come from the plants which used to be native to Egypt but which have somehow died out. And this right here is the Olmecs. And there's just too much evidence. I mean, there's just too much evidence to support the latter. Al-Omari, an Arab author writing in the 14th century, states that between the 12th and 13th centuries, the Emperor of Mali decided to explore the Western Ocean. He outfitted 2 expeditions, the first consisting of 200 ships, come on now, which found land across the sea, and the second expedition said to have consisted of an enormous fleet of 2,000, carrying thousands of people, including soldiers and colonists, across the Western Sea, where he established a new kingdom. Like the legends of the Viking journey to Finland, the trading history are largely regarded as a fictional story. However, it is not noteworthy that the statues found in the area of what is now Mexico seem to portray people with African facial features, and could some of these African explorers have settled in Mexico? And then you have the Romans. There are no Roman records of contact with North America, but hordes of Roman coins have been discovered buried in odd places throughout North America. The prevailing wisdom is that these stashes are modern hoaxes or treasure troves hidden by colonists who were later forgotten. No one really wants to admit that they may have been brought over by the Romans. Considering this, these hordes of Roman coins never contained other, more modern coins, and there is no doubt that they have been buried there for a long time. In many cases, for early colonial times, or at least before the Civil War. So, what are the chances that multiple people in various parts of what is now the United States all had access to a large number of Roman coins? Go figure, right? So, those are just some examples of what scholars are saying to dispute the latter, that there was nobody else before Columbus, that Columbus was the first to discover America or the Americas. But you have evidence that says, wait a minute, why the fuck do we have Columbus Day? We should have, Leif Erikson Day and, Sinclair Day, or a Roman Emperor Day, or a African King Day, or an Egyptian Pharaoh Day, because these people made it here. So what makes Columbus any better? Because he may have been a Knights Templar himself. He may have had treasure that he needed to bring over that needed to be buried, or artifacts that needed to be taken to somewhere else so they could be hidden, possibly the Grand Canyon. There's too much evidence and theories that could go either way. I mean, we do know that Columbus had ties to the Knights Templar, or was possibly a Knights Templar himself. He was working directly for the Queen of Spain, Isabella, and they possibly were in love. We do know that when Columbus sailed over here, he had 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, who were all outfitted with the markings of the Knights Templar, the Red Cross on white sails, which was like a big fucking welcome sign saying, hey, this is who we are. This is, for anybody else that knew who they were. Settling in this supposed unsettled continent, unsettled land, and I believe there was documentation to say that there was things that he had brought with him that were not named or were not mentioned on the lists of cargo. It was just like a ridiculous amount of stuff, but it was like, why would he bring all this stuff or bring these certain things? They think it was just a cover for him to bring things that were meant to be hidden here. There is so much stuff behind all of this. And it just, as I said before, it just begs to have people that want to look into these things and would like to learn more about this stuff, because you question everything. Everything needs to be questioned. And that's why, on this podcast, on this, on this forum, I always try and ask people, look into things, check things out, see for yourself. The whole thing about the Africans being here before Columbus, let me show this because I think I have it. Go back. There's this is a story right here of the unknown visitors to the Aztecs, which is really cool. It says, when Hernando Cortez led by his Spanish conquistadors into the heart of the Aztec Empire and seized its lands and riches, he was aided by the peculiar belief of the Aztecs that ages before they had been visited by a white man who was a god, or at least a messenger of the gods, and that this man had taught them many skills, and then departed in great ships across the sea. The legends foretold that one day he would return from the west in great ships and reclaim his kingdom. In fact, the Aztec emperor regarded himself as merely holding the office status in place of this god until he was returning. As a result, when Cortez and his men arrived in great ships from across the Western Sea, the Aztec emperor was not sure whether to welcome him as a god or to resist him. This hesitation delayed Aztec resistance and contributed to Cortez's victory despite his huge numerical inferiority. Little is known about this legendary white visitor from across the sea, but the fact that the legend says that he came from the west clearly points to some European explorers. The Voyage of Prince Peter Sinclair, which, as I said before, God, I'm going to put this link in here too because this is freaking awesome. If you guys want to check it out, please do. There is so much knowledge out there, and it gives links to books and all that stuff too. So there you go. There's one thing that, as it says, that the Aztecs were talking about the white settler, or the person who came from across the west and left back on ships. There is also a mention of the god Thoth coming over and leaving, and as this is just weird because it hit me that in the Emerald Tablets it talks about him leaving and going and teaching other cultures and giving them knowledge and skills and showing them how to live. Could this have been him? I wonder. Huh. But I mean, it was thousands of years before that, like he said. He was just holding the office until he came back. Where did my link? There's so many people who had documented, even the Chinese, for Christ's sake. But let's look at a map. Let's check this out. Okay. I'm gonna close all this stuff. Come on. Let's take a look at this. All right. Google Maps. All right. Let's bring out a long view. And we're just going to take a look and see what it would look like. All right, here we go. I'm going to bring this up so we can share it real quick. Give me yay. All right. All right. So we've got Google Maps here, okay? Now, I'll look at all my little places I want to go to when I get a chance. You have Africa, right? Right here. Now you have Egypt, all right, that is one straight shot from leaving, going past Spain. They knew that they would come down because they would keep close to land. Let's check this out real quick. And you have the Phoenicians, who were master sailors. Would they not have been able to just, as he stated, sail down, go across to South America, all right, then if they didn't sail down, because they really didn't know where the hell what was going to happen. I'm pretty sure the first people that settled were like, fuck, which way are we going to go? And they would ask people. Why is it so hard for people to realize, like, oh, well, maybe these people did have some smarts and asked the local people who were here, hey, what's over there? What's over there? I'm pretty sure there had to be other people who were sailing or who had settled in these areas. But I mean, look at, you leave Egypt, sail around Africa, they would come straight across the North Atlantic, South Atlantic, between the two, over to South America. Then you have this straight shot to America. Now, if they did, perhaps if they did sail down South America to the tip and then come back around, which why the fuck would that even happen? If they were master sailors and they were master craftsmen, their ships would have been able to sustain what they were trying to do. But I mean, if the Africans wanted to, and you had tribes who were master shipbuilders, it's not like they were fucking trying to sail here. It's not like they were trying to sail from Africa. It's literally across the Atlantic for them. Maybe these people were here. And it just baffles me to think that, you know, academic credit that is of a lot of these who in fact did make it to America. No. Sorry. All right, cool. I think that'll work. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? What do you think? I'm just throwing this out there because it was the 20th episode. I wanted to do something cool and talk about something. It's been a while. We haven't really been on. I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I think I'm just getting in my head a little bit with the fact that, thinking about this stuff. And I really don't get a lot of interaction with a lot of people that follow the page, follow the podcast on YouTube or Facebook. All right. Sorry about that. But I'm going to paste this here on my page so that way you guys can have it. I'm going to get this other stuff. Oh, my Europa. How you doing, baby girl? Um, yeah, I just like I said, I mean, I just want to post all this stuff on here so you guys can check it out. I'm not sure if you guys are able to see the connections of the links that I put on here. I hope so. But anyway, I'm posting it on. Let me get off of here. Seeker. How you liking the show? All right, cool. Everything is on there, so I'm gonna. I don't want to edit it. I just want. Whoa. The internet here is lagging, so if you guys are seeing it and it's looking kind of crappy, I'm sorry, but I just deal with what I have. Um, Let me see. If what are your thoughts on the the reasoning why it is that people, well, I wouldn't even say people, but the government, the powers that be would hide this information from everybody? Why would they want to keep this hidden? Why would this be something that they would not want to get out? Let's think about that. One reason being is because when you have these people who are supposedly supposed to be lesser than you, and I'm talking about these uh, monarchies of the time who were dominating vast parts of the globe, but to come to find out that you weren't really dominating everything, you were just occupying lands of people who were already there, that had already been there for thousands of years. And you're coming in and saying, okay, well, these people are should not be here. So we're going to claim that we found it and that we are the stakeholders of this land. And they rewrite history. It's just so weird and messed up that why would they do something like that? I mean, we find this all the time with the episode where I had on Tartaria, where you had ancient Tartaria that was believed to be something that was not real. And the CIA comes out and says, yeah, well, we kind of botched on that and lied. We fibbed. And Tartaria was a real place. And yes, there was a hand in hiding the evidence. Is this the same? Because now, as I talked about earlier on my page, I don't know, let me see if I can find it. the CIA documents, the declassified documents. If you go on www.cia.com, I'm going to copy this link really quick. Copy. And I will place it right here. You can check it out. All right. Is that they are releasing this stuff, but not a lot of people are getting into finding out this stuff on their own. And it seems like this is becoming a narrative here that for years and years and years, we are finding out that what we've been talking about, and I'm saying we, is that truth seekers, people who are looking into this subject matter, people who are looking into this evidence, people who are passing this information along, we've been right this whole time. We've been placed out to be kooks. We've been placed out to be weirdos. We've been placed out to be freaking, the C word, theorists. And I hate using that word because it's so stupid. That the only reason that you can sit here and tell people, hey, this is not true, is by telling other people that what you're saying isn't true and making you look weird to other people. They don't want our future to know how our history actually was written and make something that isn't how it was created and want to put stuff in school books and call it history. It is not history. Very true. The reason why it's not history is because we found that the people who are the holders of the Milton books that took over school curriculum and what is to be taught and what is to be shown in school books and being taught in school it's all just a stage. It's just to narrate and put in books and to show people what they want to show. And this just goes back into a whole thing of what is history, and us teaching our children historical facts by showing them and researching these things and going into libraries and looking at this stuff, talking to people, going to these conferences or talking to the people that have, done their research, that are doctors and scientists and archaeologists, and have PhDs that do this research, that are trying to spread the word about what is really being done or what was happening in our history. And yeah, we are the ones who are being called kooks and, sea theorists. I don't like using that word. But I would just like to say that I placed these links here. If you guys want to take a look at them, please do. I would like for... Let me see this. Whoa. Anyway. Let me close this really quick. Many times when things are brought up, like I said, that time when we were in Utah, and you can look this up, piss on it. I'll look on it myself right here. I'll show it to you. Blue Skidoo, Weekend 2. Bingo. After blasting open a cave on a ledge inside that, they discovered a mummified body in seated position. This is a big key here, folks. In a seated position. Approximately 6.7 inches, 15 centimeters tall, weighing approximately 1 pound. It's near Pathfinder Reservoir. Whew. 12,000-year-old black mummy found in Utah. And as I stated before, even here in Nevada at Pyramid Lake, they found bones around that same time, 10 to 12,000 years old. Salt Lake City. 9,000-year-old mummy found in Utah, Salt Lake City. Yeah, it's the evidence is out there, folks. And you have this man. Let me see. I'm going to post it on here. Whoa, hold on. Let me close this. Close that. Close that. One more page I'm going to show and share with you guys, and then I think I'm going to wrap it up. B. Damn you, cookies. An 8-foot, 9-foot mummy that was supposedly found by John Brewer said he discovered in a cave of Sanpete County that he claimed contained 2 mummies that were considerable size. Okay. Several boxes containing records. Brewer said he discovered the cave in the 1950s and visited many times, but only showed a couple of people over the 60 years since he passed in 2007. I talked with Kurt Crofts, who grew up in Panguitch and has researched many of the legends from that area. That is a lot of history in Utah that is unwritten. My favorite one is Brewer's Caves. I had a lot of interest in it with the 8-9-foot mummies that were supposedly found. One of the fascinating things is Brewer did was draw the pictures of the mummies. Now, these are the pictures that he drew and the artifacts that he found around them in this cave. This is so amazing to think. Look at this. Look at what's on this thing's chest, folks. It's a cross. There's a cross right here with a sun behind it. Okay. The woman's crown looks to me like an ancient ziggurat, a sacred building of cultures in the Middle East. In the cave, Brewer said he found metal records in a box, chest covered with a tar and pine needles. Said Croft. Brewer removed some of the small metal plates and pictures have been taken of them. I don't know if anyone has tried to translate the writing, as most claims by Brewer has been rejected by academia. Look at this shit. John Heineman, who lives in Salt Lake City and claims to have been inside the caves with Brewer. The idea that there's giant people is fascinating, he said, and these stories go around all cultures all around the world. Now, I guess this is some of the trailing that's up there. So anyway, as I said, the evidence is out there. It's happened. It's there for everybody to see, but it's just being discredited by the mainstream academics and the Smithsonian Institute. Oh man, how crazy is that, right? I just think it's fascinating. I just think it's just something that, if everybody took the time to look into a lot of stuff, I mean, everything that we're in right now, you mean to tell me that these ancient people who built this stuff, who navigated across oceans that should not have even been able to do these things, lived and thrived across this world and across this plane, and everything that we know is a lie. Why would they hide that from us? This is something that needs to be taught. It needs to be known to everybody, not only just taught to everybody. This is something else that should be brought out. A lot of people should be, asking for the evidence to be released of all this stuff. I know we want to know that aliens are real. I know we want to know that if aliens are still here and UFOs and space and all this other crap. But what about here? There's so much here on this earth that we don't understand and that we don't know, that we're not even touching the tip of the iceberg yet. No pun intended for those Antarctics and those people who are flat earthers. And I'm not even going to get into that because I'm not a flat earther. I'm just throwing up the possibility of what is out there. We don't know. Everything we don't know, we must question it. A lot of people don't want to question this stuff. A lot of people don't want to say, oh, well, what if we've been lied to? What if everything that we know is not true? And as I've said before on this show, what do? We look for the answers. We seek the truth through the unknown. What are things that we are looking at that we question and we go, this is not right. Something's going on here. We got to figure this out. Let's do it together. Let's find the answers. Let's look into the evidence. Let's share it. And through learning and through finding out answers, through gaining knowledge of what we don't know, we're not only empowering ourselves mentally, but we're empowering others. We're sharing this evidence with other people and saying, hey, I'm not going to keep this to myself and just freaking hoard it all and be like, man, I just know all this stuff, or I'm looking at all this stuff. Ha ha ha, just me. No, this is for everybody to research and to enjoy. I'm passing all of this stuff on and just saying, hey, check it out, look it up for yourselves. And I really hope that a lot of the stuff that I do talk about on the podcast here on Seeker of the Unknown, that a lot of people will look into it and question things, because we already know that everything that we have learned and everything that we know and everything that is around us it's being dictated to us. It's being simulated for us. But why? The bigger picture is what we're getting after. The bigger picture is what we're hoping for. And as I said before, I appreciate everybody for coming along on this ride. I know it seems crazy at times, and everybody's probably going, I don't know. I even have friends and close friends that are like, man, Sam, you really got to tone it down, man. Like, you're going out there. And I'm like, to hell with that, man. That's what I'm doing this for. That's why I do a lot of this stuff. And I'm having these podcasts, is because I want people to be able to share in the knowledge of this. Why hoard it for myself? And why keep it to myself and just share it with the circle of people that I hang around with, if everybody that wants to know can look at it, check it out themselves? And I I appreciate you all coming along with me on this journey and looking into this stuff and giving me a lot of feedback. If you have questions or you want to get into this stuff too, or talk more about this subject, hit me up on Facebook, Raul Samaripa with a J in the middle, or hit me up on the podcast page on Facebook and YouTube at Seeker of the Unknown. And leave me a comment, message me on Facebook. If there's a subject matter that you guys would like to look into, or that you are looking into yourself and you want to talk about, and you're not really sure of how to go about it, and you, like I said, I mean, a lot of people think that that's just them, they don't want to discuss it, so they just keep to themselves. We're all in this together. We're all seekers. We're all trying to figure out the truths of why things are the way they are. Not necessarily why they are the way they are, but why they've been told in a different manner, why we've been told that it's not true, or why it's not like this, when in fact there is the latter to prove otherwise. So yeah, I'm really excited. 20th episode. We did it. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Thank you all for coming along on this podcast. It was really good. It was great. I loved it. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the next one that's going to be coming up. And as I said before, if you guys have questions and you want to talk about another subject matter, or if you have questions on a past subject matter that you want to talk about, please hit me up. Let me know. Thank you guys for coming along on this journey of seeking out the truth on Seeker of the Unknown. Man, I look red like crazy. That's funny. But anyway, thank you guys. Thank you guys for supporting. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, everybody. Many blessings. Namaste. And always remember, you're not alone in this earth. We are placed here to be here for each other, to survive and endure without all this chaos and this hecticness that's going on. And there is a lot of things that are happening. I know right now I'm going through some stuff right now, and I'm just battling it out. We all got to make it. We all got to try and survive. And, you know, if you feel like you're alone, you're not alone. We are all here in this together. Reach out. We'll help each other. That's what we're here for. So you guys have a great weekend. Be safe. Please, 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 please think about what you're going to do before you do it. Hopefully I will see you guys next week, if not sooner. If anything comes up, I will contact you and get a hold of you. But always remember, you're special. You're placed here for a reason. And together, when we do these types of research and we look into these things together, different eyes bring up different things. And you might have caught something that I don't know, or you might have some input that I don't have. That's the thing. We can work together and get this stuff resolved and check it out. We might not find all the answers, but we'll get better insight, because knowledge is power, and knowledge is the key to gaining higher gnosis and becoming highly aware of our surroundings and what we truly are and what we are in this plane of existence. So thank you. Take care of yourself, and I will talk to you later. And may the Creator bless and watch over you. Thank you, guys.